Where She Fell, Chapter 4. Swimming across this lake is not as easy as I was anticipating. It's fortunate that I thought to bring a headlamp, but the darkness in the cavern is indescribably complete that my bobbing stripe of light doesn't help as much as I'd like. I stripped down to my underwear again after a long debate with myself, ultimately concluding that if someone finds me dead, it won't matter what I'm wearing. I leave the clothes next to my backpack on the shore. Fingers crossed nothing takes a bite out of me. I slide in carefree. The water is deep right away. I can't touch the bottom. The warmth soothes my aches, eases the soreness in my back and hip from earlier fall, loosens the tensions in my muscles. The beam of the flashlight bounces off the surface. It doesn't show me much, but at least I know before I run into a wall. Something brushes against my foot. I squeeze my eyes shut for a moment. Please do not eat me. To whatever it is, holding as utterly still as I can while keeping afloat. It doesn't. I let out a long, slow breath and keep swimming. I swim beneath a low ceiling. The air is foggy under here, and as that musty scent of a place long untouched, I breathe deep and hold it in my lungs. I love that smell. On the other side of the low ceiling, I emerge into another room. Thank God, I say aloud, breathlessly, not sure it's a good sign that I've started talking to myself. The lake ends here on what I'm going to call a beach, using the term super loosely, but there's actually a bank. My feet touch rough, rocky bottom. This place is like a steam room, much smaller than the cavern on the other side, and swirling with mist. Condensation drips from the ceiling. I direct myself toward a spot that feels almost chilly and find a narrow opening in the wall. Another tunnel. My heart soars. An exit. But a one. It's starting to worry me, much as I try to tell myself otherwise. Something about this cavern feels off. I'm standing here dripping in my underwear and I'm not cold. My body feels strange in a findable way, and so does my mind, really. Why am I anxious about things I'm not usually anxious about, like confined spaces, and simultaneously calm about the whole thing? It's probably nothing, but now that I'm mulling it over, questions jostle each other, racing through my brain. I turn away from the tunnel and swim back to where I left my things. I need to move on before I start to panic. Panic feels imminent, but then as I'm stuffing my clothes into my backpack, I pause to think for a moment. The thing is, I'm exhausted. My body is running on adrenaline alone. It's taken a serious beating today. That tunnel isn't going anywhere, and the thought of staying here for a little bit is pretty inviting. My stomach hurts, thinking about what must be going on above surface. Guilt at making everyone wait while I rest weighs heavy on my shoulders. Getting back to the surface should be my first priority. I get dressed and sit at the water's edge, legs dangling in the water. Buoyant liquid. I never imagined myself in a situation like this. My parents have always been a bit wary about my cave stuff, but I'm a cautious person and they trust me. They had protocols in place. I never wavered until today, however, accidentally. My parents must know by now. No matter how freaked out Sherry and Meg were, even if they thought they'd be blamed for what happened, they would have gone for help right away. My parents are probably home, believing I'm dead. Claire's probably told them how she warned me to be careful because even though it's a totally inappropriate thing to say at this point in time, she never can stop herself. When I get home, I'll let her scream it in my face. Sherry and Meg pressured me into this, but they didn't physically force me. I did this to my family all on my own. How would I feel if something happened to Claire or Mari? I'm ashamed of myself. My mom's a warrior. She's the one who stood wringing her hands while my dad put us on our bikes without training wheels for the first time. who wouldn't let us go too high on the swing, who put the fear of God into me about pregnancy the moment I started my period. I don't want to think about what this will do to her. After all her warnings, all her attempts to turn me into a girl who thinks before she acts, who uses caution and not impulsivity. I ended up like this anyway. Whereas we're a close-knit family, always have been. Mom's a farm manager and Dad's a contractor. They both work long, weird hours, but they're around when we need them. Meg's always telling me in my life's charm, my family's perfect, that I can never understand what it means to have something bad happen in my life because I'm shielded from it all. Yes, I proved her wrong. If I don't make it home, is the thought that keeps cycling through my head. I'm trying to suppress it because it's so awful. It'll be so easy for them to go on without me, is another awful thought. I'm just sort of there, in the middle. Mariah and Claire can close in, fill in space I used to occupy. They'll be sad at first, sure, but they'll get used to life without me. I don't know. Maybe that's comforting. I stand abruptly because sitting here wallowing isn't helping me at all. Rest seemed like a good idea, but now I think it's just increasing my panic. I adjust my headlamp and shoulder my backpack. A thorough sweep of the room's perimeter seems like a good idea. Before I take the downward sloping tunnel, a gentle breeze blows through there, which makes me wonder if I missed another tunnel hidden behind cave formation somewhere. I get out my flashlight because as much as I appreciate my headlamp, I can't swing it abruptly to look at something to the side without a sharp turn of my neck, and it's pretty jarred and achy from fall. I like the way the flashlight cuts a line through the darkness. The dark has never practically frightened me in caves, especially I like how everything is kept in a shadow, except whenever you're aiming a light at it. You're focused on a path ahead, a truly appreciating the beauty of whatever formation you're investigating, not distracted by other sights in your, I know there could be bad things hiding in the shadows, but I guess maybe my brain is too busy feeling anxious about people to understand when it should be anxious about something else. It seems like I'm not going to find anything until I sweep my flashlight to the left toward the middle part of the cavern, and I catch a flash of white. I stop dead. It's another skeleton. This one sits with its back against a stalagmite, hands folded primarily in its lap, just like the last one I saw. It still has a bit of flesh clinging to the bones in some places. A few remaining wisps of hair glued to its skull, but once again, not a single scrap of clothing. My heart accelerates. It strikes me as odd last time, but this time it strikes me. Flesh should decompose much faster than clothing or shoes, especially shoes. And why do people keep dying in this position, sitting casually, happily, like they're totally at peace with their last breath? How often does that happen? Maybe once, but definitely not twice. Back away from the skeleton, bumping into a thick pillar, hard enough that it nearly knocks the wind out of me. Something is not right in this place, and suddenly I'm stuck with a terrifying, terrible thought. Maybe I'm not alone down here. There actually is a passageway that I missed. I discovered after I semi-calmed from the skeleton accident. A thin fissure in the wall, so narrow I have to remove my backpack and hold it, dangling from my fingertips, yet still barely managing to squeeze through. I exhale, suck in my stomach, which makes me panic and feel out of breath. But my brain whispers over and over, you can go back if it gets smaller. You can go back. And thankfully the tunnel widens and slopes up. My relief is so poignant. Limbs get heavy while my head gets dizzy. I press my flashlight free hand to surprising warm, clammy wall to steady myself and keep going. Ahead I see what must be light. It has a bit of blush neon-ish quality, but sunlight always looks a little strange to me when I've been in the dark for a while. I pause to stow my flashlight because the headlamp is enough as the light ahead grows stronger. My parents are going to be so angry with me, but also so thankful and so relieved. I will take whatever punishment they offer up, even if I'm grounded from now until the end of high school. I just want to get out of here. I've never wanted out of a cave so badly in my life. Maybe I'll come back someday on purpose through an interest that is not a sinkhole in a swamp, and not alone either. Something moves upwards. The light moves. The light? It isn't the sun. I realize, heart sinking all the way to my feet. It's a solid form, a human-like form, a glowing human. I can't make sense of what I'm seeing, but what I can make sense of is that it looks like it's holding a weapon and seems to be heading towards me. Run, my instincts tell me, so I run. Diary entry. Some basic cave safety practices I've been following for years. Always tell someone where you're going and approximately when you'll be back. If you get lost or hurt or lose your light, stay and wait for help. Remain calm. Know your limits and don't push them. Don't run. Never, ever go caving alone. Today, I've broken every single one of these rules. Chapter 5. All I can think about is getting back to the water, getting across and through to the tunnel on the other side. When I reached the lake's edge, I glanced back. The tunnel I just fled emits a faint glow, which sets my heart racing. I grab my backpack and slip into the water as silently as I can, holding my backpack aloft in one hand while I swim. Everything's quiet except my harsh breathing and the gentle ripple of the water with each stroke of my arm. Everything's dark except the thin beam of light cut by my headlamp. The darkness doesn't feel smoothing anymore, or the quiet. It was one thing when I figured nothing was here. Now the dark and quiet seems sinister, dangerous. Of course, apparently, so is the light. On the other side of the low-hanging wall, I slipped through the crack to another passage, wishing I had time to change my soaping wet clothes. The tunnel's narrow and downward sloping, and the floor is slippery. Not ideal. Its sharp turns disorient me. I don't think this at all. I don't want to be heading deeper into this already too warm cave. My lungs and my head still feel a little wrong, and I still think it's dangerous to change in the air pressure, which is something I've never experienced. Caves visited don't get deep enough for these kinds of side effects. I didn't even know you could get deep enough for side effects like these, to be honest. I glanced behind me, half expecting to see a glow shimmering in the air, but there's nothing. My pace slows, and I start to doubt what I saw, if I saw anything. When people are lost in the desert, they see migraines, right? I've never wanted to see daylight so badly. Maybe my brain malfunctioned. Except my brain can never just be kind to me, so it turned the sunlight into something more sinister. Breeze in this passage comforts me, if only slightly. If there's a breeze, there's airflow. An airflow can only be a good thing, even if the slope of the tunnel causes anxiety to claw at my guts. I think longingly of the other tunnel, the one that was actually in an incline, and wonder if I should go back. The memory of the glowing human form frightens me enough to keep me from trying, though especially when combined with the memory of the neatly setted skeleton stripped of their clothes. Around a bend, the tunnel branches into two forks. They're basically identical, and I freeze with indecision until I hear what can only be described as a growl emanating from the left fork. I don't know what made the growl, what could possibly live down here that makes it sound like that, but I don't want to be anywhere near it. Right fork it is then. I can't rush because the floor is still slippery and damp, and the downward tilt has become tiltier. but I don't want the growling thing to catch up to me either. My heartbeat thrums in my fingertips as I moving along, feeling like Red Riding Hood pursued by the wolf. I glance over my shoulder and see nothing, but my headlamp aims mostly at the wall when I do that. So it's all suppressive darkness anyway. An uneven spot catches my toe and I stumbled. My nails escape the walls in one tear with a burst of pain. I'm not proud of the word that slips from my mouth when it happens, or the one I say when the headlamp flies off, clatters to the ground and flickers out. My phone and flashlight are still in my backpack, but this headlamp is so much easier. I need it. I edge carefully forward on my knees, sweeping one arm in front of me to feel for the light. My breathing is so loud. The only noise in this narrow space, it echoes behind me that's not an echo. I'm not the only thing breathing in this space. I give up the headlamp, reach into my bag, and find my cell phone. It's off, and my heart hammers while a numb-fingered hand presses the power button, aiming the screen behind me. The glow as it turns itself on reflects something. Eyes. The eyes of a predator. I scream and run. My toe collides with the headlamp, and I hear it bounce ahead of me. I'm sightless, grazing myself on the walls, praying there's not a sudden turn ahead that I smack head into. The creature snarls at my back, chasing me now, obviously, because I'm an idiot who fled. I didn't get a good look at it, so I didn't know how big it is or how dangerous. But if it can see, and I can't, the answer to the latter is probably bury. My foot slips on the ever-steeping, condensation-heavy floor, and I tumble forward, keep tumbling, completely out of control. And then I'm soaring, and the air around me glows orange. For a moment, I wonder if this is the end. If I'm going to heaven, then I slam into solid ground with a burst of indescribable pain, and the orange glow seems more like fire. If I'm going anywhere now, it's hell. Diary entry. I might be the only person in the world whose personal hero is named Otheldril. Otheldril Bennett, to be more specific. This kind of veers from the topic of me and this cave situation, but I'm thinking about her right now. Most people have never heard of Otheldril, but she's considered the first lady geologist. She even got an honorary doctorate from the University of St. Petersburg, despite the fact that women were not admitted there. It only happened because Tisrell Nicholas, I thought, based on her name, that she was a man. But still, she earned it. It wasn't her fault he was an idiot. Ethel was a fossil collector, and that's not my thing. But she was important during the time when women were openly considered lesser. When I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, like my goals are ridiculous and I'll never achieve them, like I'm the most nothing person in the entire world, I think of her and everything she's accomplished. I'll never have her courage. It's not who I am, but she inspires me to try.